This is Kathy from Gadgets Top 321, and in today's video, I'm taking a look at these ink collection cards from Tsubame. Now, I first saw these on a video on Mike Matteson's channel, Inkdependence, and he had placed an order with Shigure Inks. He had several inks and a couple different brands of these ink collection cards, and he tested both cards, and these from Tsubame ended up being the best, and they've got several things going for them that made me think, hey, I'd really like to use that as my way of cataloging my inks. The first thing that I really liked about them was they come in this box, and when I received it, I was pleasantly surprised by how good a quality is. It's cardboard, but it's a nice heavy cardboard. This is the only printing on the box. There's no branding. It just says ink collection cards, and it's got these nice designs on it. There's no other printing on the box. So it's a nice way to store your cards. Inside the box, it just has this card with the same design that's on the cover of the box. And then there's some writing in Japanese on the back. I tried to use Google Translate to see what it said, but it was having trouble translating it, so I'm not sure what that says. Inside the box, you get 150 cards. Now, the cards are made out of a paper, and the paper, I don't know if you'll be able to see it. There's a pattern you can see in the paper similar to a watermark. If you've ever used like a life notebook, it has this same type of paper that has that pattern in it, but it's not a pattern that you can feel. The paper itself is very smooth and very ink resistant. Now, this is the first ink card that I made, the first swatch test that I did, and I tried to do this one on camera, and it didn't turn out that well because I did my swatch up at the top with tweezers, and that worked out well. And then I used my glass dip pen to do a scribble, and then I don't know what I was thinking. Maybe I didn't do that scribble yet. I was going to do a scribble down here in the little ink jar design, and that just didn't turn out the way I wanted. So I went back and I used the tweezers to do a swatch over it, and you can still see the scribble in there. So it just didn't turn out that well. So I quit trying to film it, and I just went and got all of my bottles of ink and went through and did swatches for them, and I developed a nice little method so that my cards are all kind of uniform so that I can compare kind of the properties of each of the inks. This is the second one I did, an ink that I'm enjoying using right now, Diamond Green Black. And so the method that I went through, I used my tweezers to do the swatch up at the top and then did a swatch inside the little bottle. And then I used my glass dip pen to do a little scribble and then write the name of the ink. And then I also have this ink in a pen right now, so I went ahead and did a writing sample with it. And that worked out really nice. Doing that scribble gets that first blob of ink off the nib of the dip pen so that you can write more uniformly. And so I went through and did all of my bottles of ink. Now on my Oxford blue, I got a little bit too heavy here in the ink jar in the swatch, so you can just get a glimpse of those lighter tones. I did a little bit better when I did Diatramentus Sherlock Holmes. You're able to see the sheen as well as the lighter ink color. But where I messed up on this card, after I scribbled, I went back and re-dipped it. I felt like it was getting a little too thin down here, but then I had, the blob of ink here when I first started writing. So I eventually learned from my mistakes, and here's another good one. Momiji, look at that sheen. I learned that I do my scribble, then write the name, and I did that for the rest of these, and they turned out really well. So I'm going to go back and redo my Colorverse Dark Energy. It's my favorite ink to use right now. I'm using it in my Custom 74. So I'm going to, I guess I need a blank one. I like that 150 of these, since it's paper and not cardstock, doesn't take up a lot of space. They just fit in this little box. Now, I ordered mine from Shigure Inks also. It was my first order I've ever placed with Shigure. They've got some neat stuff, so I'm guessing it probably won't be my last order. They a box of 150 costs $10, and you have a choice. You can get a red box or a black box, and they both have the foiling on top. It cost $10. Shipping was $4 and some odd cents. It was between $4 and $5. So I ended up paying a little over $14 for these. That might be a little bit much for something like this. So you might, if you're going to pick up something like this, wait until you have a couple other things that you want to order to kind of even out the shipping. But I've got my bottle of Colorverse Dark Energy here. And I like to start with the tweezer swatch. The nice thing about the tweezer swatch is it's such a quick cleanup. I just wipe off the tweezers with my ink paper here, or my paper napkin, and you don't even have to have water for cleanup if you clean it up immediately and don't let it dry. A little bit. Pinch the tweezers together and dip it in the ink. And then I come down to the ink jar. Just color back and forth. And now I'm going to use my glass dip pen and scribble in the first square. And write the name of the ink up here. All right, and then I put it immediately in the water, and I'm just going to set it there for a minute while I close up my ink. And since I have a pen inked up with this ink at the moment, I'll go ahead and do a writing sample with it. Okay, now each time I ink up a pen with this ink, I can add a writing sample here. And on one of the cards, I did some little writing in here. I'm going to save that. I'm not sure exactly what I'm going to do in that box, but I do like having the scribble in this one. I'm going to wait just a minute. I'm going to pause the video and let that little drip dry. Okay, wow, that little drip took a long time to dry, but this is one of those inks that the swatch just does not do it justice. I find that normally swatches really make an ink, or the swatch tends to be, I don't want to say prettier, but for lack of a better way to explain it, the swatch tends to be prettier than when you actually use the ink in writing, but this is the opposite. The swatch is kind of a, I would never see myself buying an ink because of this right here. But if you look at the scribble, this is why I like this ink so much. You can see a little bit of, just a little bit of sheen, a halo of sheen in the scribble. And let's see if you can see it on this writing. Yeah, I love this ink. But from the way this heavy drip behaved, I've never had any trouble with this being an excessively long drying ink. But if you have a really wet broad nib, you may have some issues with how long it takes to dry. But I really I enjoy using this in my Custom 74. And now I have a ton of ink samples that I cannot wait to start using these ink cards to catalog them. Alright, if you found this video helpful, please give me a thumbs up, and if you'd like to see more videos like this, please subscribe to my channel.